of stuff on a PowerPoint, and I really want to hear your questions and answer them for you. So we'll start. My name is Andy Hood, Scio Township Fire Chief. My name is Andy Hood. I'm a Scio Township Fire Chief. I've been here about 3.5 years. I started in March of 2020. Most of you will remember the week I started. Was the week COVID shut down the U.S. So it was kind of an interesting time for me as well, transitioning from one career to another. A little background about myself. Started in the fire service right out of high school. Grew up in northern Macomb County, became a volunteer firefighter right after I got out of high school at 18 years old. 21, I started a career as a career firefighter in a full-time department in Macomb County. Firefighter, paramedic. I still maintain my paramedic license today. I worked 24 years there and saw the opportunity here in Scio. I've lived in Washington County for several years. Applied, made it through a lengthy process, and here I am today. Glad to be here. It's a great community. I love the residents and enjoy working here. So I'll jump right into it. So what's Scio Township asking voters to approve? And I'm going to talk about it a little bit backwards. I'll start with a capital question. Capital question, no more than 0.75 mils to fund financing of a fire station, new equipment for the fire station, and property. So that's really the three things. The township has property on Wagner near Liberty. What we want to do is borrow money so that we can build a fire station there, borrow money to put equipment in the fire station, and last, the one property, we'd like to plan for the future. The west side of Scio is growing a lot, and we have a fire station that's about 30 years old here, just north of us on Z. I'd like to have property so that when the statistics show that we need a third fire station, we've got a place to put it. We kind of ran out of room in the southeast corner, grew up around Scio, and we didn't plan for that. And I'd also like to plan for the replacement of this fire station. I expect another 20 to 30 years out of the building. But if we have the property today, we're ready for the future. I don't think we need a third fire station today. I think a second is what we need. But I do want to be prepared that if some huge boom goes on in Scio, we're prepared. And the second is an operating question. It's to increase the existing assessment of 1.35 to no more than 3.75 mils. It'll be a gradual implementation over 8 to 10 years. And it's going to generally increase as a second station is built. It's going to take us probably a year to build a second fire station. And this is all with voter approval. It's going to take us probably a year to build a second fire station. And from there, we're going to have to hire firefighters to staff that fire station. Like many other industries, you see, it's difficult to hire firefighters. I expect we could probably hire 3 folks a year and gradually increase over the next decade or so until we have adequate staffing there. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like when this plan's all built out a few slides down. Something important to note, if voters do not approve the capital question, but do approve the operating question, all we'll be able to do is add a third or a fourth firefighter to our Z road station. If voters approve the capital question, but not the operating question to support the additional firefighters, nothing will change.
Can you repeat that again? That last part?
I know it's confusing. So this question would give us money to build a fire station, and this one to staff it. If voters approve building the station but not staffing it, we're not going to build it because we'll have no firefighters to put in it.
And these are going to be 2 separate questions on the ballot?
They are correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
If if residents say, hey, we approve this one but not the capital, we won't be able to build a second fire station, but we will be able to add a 4th firefighter to our Z road station every day. Does that clarify for you?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
So why is Scio Township asking voters this question? Well, number one reason, increasing population. If we take Dexter out of the equation, because we don't provide service to Dexter, in 1990, there were about 9,000 people in Scio Township. Our last census was about 17,500. You see some conflicting data out there about the numbers saying our population's going down. In 2014, the Census Bureau removed Dexter's population from Scio's. So the way it looked in 2010, there were around 20,000 people in Scio, but that included the residents of Dexter as well. So I excluded Dexter from every calculation here. So our population's going up. Increased response times. We have a goal of being to your emergency in under 6 minutes, and we need to meet that goal 90% of the time. Our current average is 10 minutes and 33 seconds. We meet that objective about 45% of the time. This goal is based on national consensus standards and best practices. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, provides guidelines for us to follow. Their consensus standards, they're throughout the US, and we're meeting that about 45% of the time. Then also increasing call volume. 2000, we did just over 800 calls. 2023, I'm projecting us at about 1,600 calls. Yeah.
So 45% of the time you get to a house, is that what that means?
Yeah, to any call.
Within 10 minutes?
Within under the 6 minute response time.
Oh, I
6
see,
minutes.
I
So
see.
55% of the time, we're over 6 minutes to get to a call.
But the average is 10 minutes.
10 minutes and 33 seconds, correct.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, of course, I'm just wondering what the upside is of that 10 minutes.
I'm sorry?
Just wondering what the upside is of that 10 minutes. That's the average, right?
There are some places it takes us a long time to get to. And I'll offer an explanation that some of that is related to our storm response. When we have these major winter storms, wind storms, ice storms and such, we call in extra people, but we're inundated with calls. We'll have, over the course of 3 hours, 30 or 40 calls, wires down, car accidents, in addition to our routine calls. But with only 2 vehicles on the road, or the last storm, the assistant chief, myself, off-duty folks, we had 5 vehicles on the road, but it still took us upwards of 30 to 40 minutes to get to some calls.
Will the new station impact that?
Absolutely. And I'll help you understand that a little further down the road.
Okay.
So what do residents have for fire service today? So about 80% of the time we have 3 firefighters on duty at our Zebra Road station, which is centered in the township. The township's fire department was started in '86 or so, and we had, quite a few less folks in the township at the time, and it was primarily paid on call or volunteer fire department. When it met the township's needs, we had probably 25 paid on call firefighters. Today, we struggle to find any paid on call firefighters. We've actually got 3 left. 2 of them don't even live in the community. They work part-time shifts with us. One of our firefighters lives in the community. So of those 3 firefighters we have on duty most of the time, they either staff our fire engine or our tanker. Any incident that goes out inside Scio Township, they take the engine to, and we respond the tanker to mutual aid calls for fires. When we get a fire inside, we send our engine, our off-duty or paid-on-call folks come back and bring our tanker out to the fire station. But bottom line is we've got 1 vehicle in service for the entire community the majority of the time. So where do our emergencies occur? This is actually pretty intuitive, but our higher areas of higher population density generally have more calls. Zeb and Jackson, a ton of traffic going through there, and not surprisingly, a ton of traffic crashes there. So if we look anywhere from basically where we are all the way down through Liberty, we're pretty busy. Over on Jackson, Scio Farms, mobile home community, high population density, we're in there quite often. And over our Baker Road corridor, quite busy over there. As we work towards the east side of Jackson Road, we're quite often busy. We've got some apartments and some more higher density populations down here. And then our southeast section of Scio, the uplands, we're often busy up there as well. A lot of homes, a lot of people in there, and a lot of calls for service. So if voters approve this, what would this fund? If both questions are approved, first thing we would do is fully staff the Zebra Road Fire Station to get us 4 folks on duty every day. And I'm gonna repeat 4 a couple of times because it's a pretty key metric for us. We built a fire station, a brand new one, and staff it on Wagner at Liberty. Township owns the property. It's just south of the intersection there. Hey, good morning, folks. Oh, no problem. We're a little ways into it, but trying to be informal. So if you got some questions, just shout them out for me, okay? It would, if approved, we'd be able to build a second fire station. It's if you happen to drive by Wagner south of Liberty, we've got a sign up kind of right in front of where the township owns the property. Vestergaard Farms is using it right now. They're using it for some cattle to graze out there right now, which is actually kind of cool. Additionally, we hope to plan for the next 20 years. We want to buy some property on the west side of Scio for future growth when needed. And let me stress again, our data shows we don't need a fire station on the west side of Scio right now. That may change in 10 years, I don't know. But right now we don't. I want to be prepared as we see a lot of growth going down there so that when that need does come, we're prepared. And also replace our Z Road fire station 20 to 30 years down the road. I don't anticipate being here at that time. I probably have another 12 or so years before I'm ready to retire, but I want to put the township in a position that we're not struggling to find property to meet the township's growing needs. If approved, Scio residents would have, instead of one fire engine responding in the community, we'd have two. And I'm going to use these terms kind of interchangeably because there'll be a fire engine at one station, a ladder truck at one station, and water tankers. And we'd respond with the appropriate vehicle at each one. Scio's got a lot of areas in the community where there's not municipal water. So we rely on water tankers to get water out to the fire station. Each fire station would have a water tanker so that if, for example, we have a fire call on the north side of Scio, our closest engine will respond. It's much more prepared to deal with a fire incident. And our Wagner Road station would bring water out to the scene. If it turns into a major incident, we have mutual aid from our neighbors that would come in and help bringing more water and more people to assist. That would give each fire vehicle 3 firefighters assigned to it. 3 firefighters is key. You've got one person that needs to, on a fire call, that needs to operate the pump, operate the water pump, control the hoses and such, and 2 people to control the hose line. Medical calls or car accidents, that's an appropriate number as well. We'd license every vehicle we have to respond to medical emergencies also. So if we have a medical emergency today, we send our engine or a rescue out to it. Tomorrow, we'd send our engine or rescue out to it as well, if this is approved. Additionally, we would staff a rescue. So right now, Huron Valley Ambulance is struggling to hire paramedics. Their resources are dwindling and we're having increased response times with them. We want to work together with them. If we can send a basic life support rescue out to take some of the more minor medical emergencies, so for example, a dislocated ankle or something like that, we can transport that person to the hospital. That would free up Huron Valley Ambulance with their paramedic service to treat the heart attacks and things of that nature. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you move a little slower on one part of what you just said?
Yeah.
You said something about Valley Ambulance. Who is that?
So Huron Valley Ambulance, if you notice a blue ambulance driving around the community on occasion, that's our ambulance provider countywide.
So you are not an ambulance service?
We are not.
At all?
Not yet.
But Blue Valley Ambulance is the ambulance service.
Correct.
So when people call, have a health emergency, do they know to call Blue Valley Ambulance? Is that how that works?
Goes right through 911. That's the only number you need.
Okay.
And everything happens behind the scenes. You as someone having an emergency, all you have to do is call 911 and get the appropriate resources.
Okay, so they route people to either Blue Valley Ambulance or to you, for example. Okay.
Actually both. We respond on 75% of the medical emergencies in Scio.
Oh, you do?
We do.
Physically respond?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
In fact, our folks left here to go to a medical call 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw them leave.
Yep, they went out on an emergency call.
Oh.
So we respond typically because we often get there quicker than the ambulance.
I was gonna say, chief, you ought to tell them yesterday how 10 a.m. in the morning, there is no Huron Valley ambulance available for somebody having a seizure?
I'll make mention of that. So we respond often first because we can generally get there first. We can do a lot of life-saving measures. We've got some medications we can give. We can treat breathing problems. We can treat allergic reactions, things like that, overdoses. And then the paramedics come in with Huron Valley Ambulance, and they got more stuff. They can do cardiac monitoring, they can administer cardiac medications, start IVs and things like that.
And who's responsible for funding Huron Valley Medicine? Or Huron Valley Ambulance?
They're a private company. They get their compensation through billing for service.
Right.
On call, billing per job.
Correct.
Wow.
Gentleman, Mr. Apel made mention of a call we had yesterday. We got dispatched for a seizure at a home. Person was having multiple seizures. That's not something we can treat. We don't have the IV medications to treat that. But about 4 minutes after we were dispatched, they told us that there was no ambulance available. It took them about 15 minutes to get an ambulance to that seizure scene.
What vehicle do you use to do this?
So primarily we use our fire engine. Yeah. If approved by voters, we'd be able to put our own ambulance in service so that seizure patient, we would actually be able to load up and transport to the hospital and have them to a hospital as quickly as possible. Oftentimes we can do that before HVA could get there. So our higher, if we've got someone that's having a heart attack and the ambulance is 20 minutes out, we're 10 minutes from the hospital, we can get you to the hospital, take care of it that way. Let the hospital address it. This vehicle would be licensed to transport. And again, we'd be able to take a lot of the lower severity calls so that Huron Valley Ambulance with their paramedics could deal with the higher calls, right? We can take a dislocated elbow or a twisted ankle or something like that to the ER, let them stay in the community and respond to the heart attack or cardiac arrest call. And again, we want to work with Huron Valley Ambulance to improve service for the community. Additionally, we'd add an officer in charge. This position is called a battalion chief. Staff with the senior officer of the day. And that's the person who manages the day-to-day operations on the street. We serve as incident commander on larger scenes in Scio Township, such as car accidents, building fires, or vehicle fires, and things like that. So our Z Road station, it would do about 60% of our calls as its first due area. They'd be closer to 60% of our emergencies, be able to respond there first. They'd have a firefighter, a fire engine with 3 firefighters and a battalion chief, and here's that 4 number. That's important, and I'll tell you why in another slide or two. Wagner Road Station, about 40% of the calls would be their first due area. They'd get to 40% of the calls in the township first. They'd have a ladder truck with three firefighters and a rescue with 2. And again, we've got that 4 number met. And that Wagner Road Station would respond to areas that contain our greatest number of responses that are more than 6 minutes. So 4 is kind of a key number for us. We've got MIOSHA regulations that give us very specific guidance on when we can go into a building. If we have a hazardous condition, such as the building's on fire, such as there's a carbon monoxide leak inside it, or a gas leak inside it, or things like that, we have to have 4 people on scene before we can go into that building. 2 people have to go in, and 2 people have to remain outside to rescue them if they get trapped or injured. So having 4 firefighters at each station is super key for us to immediately arrive on scene and begin taking care of whatever emergency residents have. And then this would also give us the resources to respond appropriately to emergencies that require more than just a 3-man engine to respond to. In a car crash, we typically need anywhere from 6 to 9 people. Cardiac arrest call, we should have that number of people. House fires, up to 15 to 18 people on scene. This would give us a great base to get started while other municipalities come in and help us, which they do. With a great mutual aid agreement. And here's kind of a layout of what everything looks like. Currently, we've got 1 station with an engine and 3 firefighters. If voters approve this, we have 2 stations, each with a fire vehicle and 3 firefighters. our rescue that can respond to medical emergencies, and our officer in charge. Each station would be able to meet the 2 in, 2 out requirement. So immediately upon arrival on scene, they could begin taking care of whatever hazards there. We can reduce response time significantly. I'll show you a chart comparison in another slide that shows where most of our calls are and where the station might be and how it's really going to be impactful for those residents. And then redundancy. I talked a little bit about that, but there's a lot of calls today that we under respond to. Car accident, we should have 6 or 7 people on scene, we send 3. So today, it's 1 station. Here's our entire response area, all of Scio Township. Out of 1 station centrally located. If we had 2 stations, station here in the center would cover everything in the white, and the station down here cover everything in the yellow.
How do you determine that? How did you determine that that's what the limits would be for each station? Why not just divide it in half?
So we spent a lot of time really analyzing how long it takes us to get to certain points in the community. So as an example, this point here in Scio, Pratt Road and Wagner, is 2 miles from either fire station. Exactly. However, this section of Pratt Road is unimproved, it's dirt road. Most of the time, we'll be able to drive appropriately here, but then have to slow down here, whereas this is all paved. So I figure we're gonna save about a minute getting to this point from this fire station, so anything up here, we'll be able to respond to quicker. It's strictly a result of how long it takes us to get to a point in the community.
Which is important,
Yep.
really important.
Absolutely.
What about density of population in each section? Does it matter?
It does, and that's part of the conversation, why we really need a second fire station. We've got high density here and high density here, and correspondingly a lot of calls, right? And that's really what drives our inability to meet our response time goal. From our existing fire station, it takes us sometimes 10 to 12 minutes to get to an emergency here. So if there was 2 houses here, we wouldn't be having this conversation because, we're still meeting our goal 90% of the time.
So is it accurate that the people putting out the no on this vote are saying that there aren't enough fire calls to justify this? I mean, you're saying that you have calls that you've had trouble reaching. They're saying what's really needed is the medical support. And that this is overreach for the current amount of fire calls that you actually receive.
So what I'll say is our statistics, our breakdown of calls are very typical for suburban fire departments, not only throughout Michigan and the region, but throughout the US. 5% of our calls are actual fires. 50% of our calls roughly are medical emergencies. That's normal. That's standard for the industry. I will say if we do put an ambulance down here, they'd be able to address about half the calls in this area, but they can't address a fire call if they just have an ambulance down there. If I put a fire engine down here alone, that fire engine can respond to all these areas for both fire and medical calls and still stabilize people, address fire emergencies, address car accidents, whereas an ambulance can't, medical can't.
So with your rescue calls, what hospital do you plan to use?
So
And how long does it take you from the actual pickup to whichever hospital you're choosing?
generally, there's 3 hospitals that folks in Scio get transported to. U of M, Trinity Health now, and then Chelsea. And we take them wherever they'd like to go.
Yeah, we had an ambulance come to our house for my husband, and he wanted to go to Trinity, and that's what we do.
Yep.
But it was Huron Valley.
Yep.
It wasn't the fire department. Just back on the nature of the fire trucks versus ambulances, is there any policy plan, what are the requirements to have more medical assistance on the fire trucks? Do you need a separately trained person, an EMT?
So all of our staff is trained at least EMT level. So they're able to do all the things that we can do universally. CPR, AED, administer some medications. We can even insert an airway. So we have a great example. We had a cardiac arrest patient right around the corner last week before? 2 weeks, yeah. 2 weeks ago. We had, fortunately, we had a fourth firefighter on duty that day. One of our paid on call folks was in. Assistant chief was in the station, and I happened to be out coming back from taking a look at some of the property that's being developed on the west side. And we got a cardiac arrest call right around the corner here. Your firefighter showed up with 5 people within 90 seconds, I think was our response time. Really quick, they began CPR. They inserted an advanced airway so that the person could breathe well, or we could breathe for them well. We used our AED on the person.
What's that?
It's a defibrillator.
Oh, the paddles.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
They're-
not paddles anymore, they're stickers,
They're
yeah.
pads.
Yeah.
So you do have that, but you said
Absolutely.
before that there were certain things you don't have.
Correct. We can't do a 12 lead EKG yet. We need equipment for that. We can't start an IV and administer cardiac meds or pain medications.
So would this millage pay for those things then?
Not yet. We still would rely on Huron Valley Ambulance to do that.
But you're telling us that they often don't have ambulances available.
Correct.
So why wasn't more medical included in this proposal?
There's a lot of county restrictions on paramedic service.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I was asking, what other regulations?
Yeah, so all of our treatment guidelines are governed by the Washtenaw-Livingston Medical Control Authority. That's all the hospitals in Washtenaw-Livingston County come together and provide us protocols that we have to follow for treatment of patients and such. In order to be a paramedic licensed agency, they've made it so restrictive that very few places can meet the requirements. We wouldn't have the staff to meet the requirements.
Currently,
Currently.
but if these ballot proposals pass, is there a plan?
There's potential that could happen. It would take some regulation changes, hiring of paramedics, and additional training. But today, all we're proposing is EMT level basic life support. That this proposal passes, that is a potential future step.
And chief, physically, our equipment, obviously with the other changes that David just mentioned, physically, the rescue could be equipped with the equipment to make it possible.
Correct. That rescue that we have, actually come back from a call right now, is able to have all the equipment it needs. We just need the regulatory approval, regulatory changes, and equipment, and the trained people. Sir, you had a question?
Yeah, looking at that map over there, we're brand new to the area, we just moved here.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned 3 hospitals. Can you generally speaking point out where those hospitals are relative to this map?
At the end, I'm gonna pull up a Google map and show you. Is that okay?
Way far away.
In Ohio.
Sir?
I just have a comment. You mentioned a mile of dirt road going to that corner.
Yes, sir.
Just an observation. It probably has really nothing to do, we can't do anything about it, but my neighbor's brother's house caught fire. He's at the end of 2 months.
You can get it paved, but that's,
Well, I am an advocate of paving roads, but I'm kind of like an anachronism here in Scio Township because the folks in Scio Township.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Folks in Scio Township like their dirt roads, but a comment on dirt roads. Like, as I said, my neighbor's brother, house caught fire, and he's at the end of a long stretch of dirt road. And on the way there, the Dexter Area Fire Department tanker slid off the ice-covered dirt road into the ditch on the side of the road. I think it partially blocked the road so that the next fire truck took a long time to get there. And by the time they got there, his house was gone. So having dirt roads, there's 2 sides to every question. Now, I imagine as a firefighter, trying to go get to the house as soon as possible on an ice slick dirt road, which we all know, even on a sunny day, those roads can be very slick, where the black asphalt is nice and clear. But so, just a comment on location of fire stations versus where it is now.
Absolutely correct, and I happen to be on that emergency call, and you're absolutely right. It was one of those super cold winter days, and you know, they don't take care of the dirt road that he lived on, and it had a crown on it, and I think they got, I can't remember if it was their first or second vehicle, pulled up to the scene, the brakes locked, and it actually slid off into the ditch. The second one had to pull the driveway to begin fighting the fire. Yeah, it was a significant loss.
Now, one thing you said before that struck me, because our neighbor across the street was in this circumstance. The way you're set up now, even though your fire engine can get, even if your fire engine can get to the scene of a medical problem quickly, they can't take the person to the hospital until the ambulance comes.
Correct.
And this man was in, was he having a heart attack? He was in very bad shape, and, it just seemed, it just seemed like forever before that ambulance got there, and he was, there was nothing that they could do, so.
Yep, I'd agree, and again, going back, our proposal here, we want to staff a vehicle that we can transport folks to the hospital. In those situations where Huron Valley Ambulance is super busy and can't get the help to you, we want to be able to get you to the hospital. Any other questions on this? I threw up our heat map here. So with our current station here, this section of the township, we pretty much meet our response time goals. Scio Farms, we meet our response time goals. Most of the time, there's some areas in the back that we're a little slower to get to. And then over off of Baker Road, we have the advantage of being able to hop on 94. So we meet our response time goals there. The areas where we don't, obviously the uplands, as this is one of our longest response time areas with high population, all up and down Wagner here. And the west side of Jackson Road, we struggle to meet our response time goals there. Then if you look where this proposed station is, I'd actually rather it be maybe a half mile farther north, but it's gonna address most of these areas. So I do want to talk about timeline implementation. If we get voter approval here, and it's only a couple weeks away, isn't it? Wow. If we get voter approval, this winter, we're gonna complete our building plans. We have basic schematic design done. Townships funded that, we've got that ready. That building's bigger and more pricier than we need. I'm gonna shrink that down a bit. We're gonna put vehicles, we're gonna put orders, specs together for vehicles, get them ordered. Right now, some of the times are 2 years to get a fire vehicle. And hire 3 firefighters to complete staffing our Zeep Road station. Spring of 2025 is my anticipated break ground. Our architect thinks we could squeeze that 6 months sooner. We'll see. But worst case scenario, spring 2025 will break ground on a station, about 9 to 12 months to build it and get it ready. 2026, we'd open the station, hire 6 more firefighters. And then starting in 27 through roughly 31, hire about 3 firefighters a year. That'll get us up to staffing. And each one of these will be a small increase in the tax over time. Hire 3 firefighters is gonna cost a little bit more. Maybe nothing here. We'll have bonds out for building the station, be paying those back. Right around here, we're hiring 6 firefighters, so there'll be a little increase in cost there. And then each year as we go through, it'd be a minor increase in cost, average homeowner, $50, $60, $70, somewhere in that neighborhood, each year going forward.
Okay, so the full expense that people are talking about is not until the end of that timeline? Yeah.
Correct.
If you don't mind my saying, and you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
That's a really important point, because you talk about, in the beginning, you spoke about like the growth of the area. You're adding another 7 years. Well, it's 2023, 7, almost 8 years. You're already into 8 additional years of growth before you hit the increase, the maximum increase that people are talking about. So I don't know, if there's a way to get that information out there.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
trying.
I'm sorry.
And meeting with folks like you helps.
It's also important to note that that is an estimate, an approximation, number 1. Number 2, if something happens, God forbid, like 2008, and construction stops in Scioto Township, growth stops in Scioto Township. The chief has to come to the board every year at the beginning of the fiscal year and say, here's what I'm going to do this year, here's what I'm gonna need. If growth stops, he may only need to hire one firefighter or two. But right now, we certainly need more than that. And we're growing currently at a rate of 2.3% a year. I wanna stress that because there's a number has been floated out that it's only 1.5% a year. But since 2009, we have averaged 2.3% a year of growth. And if you continue that, I think we'll be, by 2030, we'll be at 22,300 people. Currently, we're at 17,500. So,
And there are a number of developments that are, especially if you haven't driven over by Baker Road, Woodview Commons just actually took out a loan for $92 million to finish their condo development, which is right by Tractor Supply Company on Jackson Road. Heritage Woods is likely to begin construction next year with Senior Living Center, which I'll actually let Chief Dow talk because that generates a bunch of calls for the fire department.
So just a point of clarification, so what we'd be voting on is permission to raise the millage at various points, not an automatic increase.
Correct.
Again, what
That's-
this smart lady over here said, people don't, we certainly didn't understand that, reading the materials we received.
That's very,
Especially
yeah.
we've received more negative materials than we have positive materials. And that is, because when we first saw it, living on a dirt road without communal water and well, we value the proximity of the Z Road station. Where we will not benefit from the Wagner Road station, but so we understand how critical a water tanker is, for example. But I think most people think that their taxes are gonna go up this huge amount immediately. And somebody needs to get the word out that that's not what they're voting on.
I'm trying, I'm doing what I can.
There's been some people that have been trying to the community. Chief, could you mention, since you just mentioned a good point, what do you think the initial ask, if this were to pass, would be here in November?
So I've worked, some of the comments we've heard, and I'm gonna backtrack a little bit and then answer your question. Some of the comments we've heard from residents are that they don't trust the township board, they don't think they're fiscally responsible, things like that. So I'll say, they've just hired a Plant Moran to be the finance director. So they've actually got a CPA working in the building 3 or 4 days a week. Someone that I can go to get sound, legitimate financial direction and advice. Super happy working with them because it makes my job a whole lot easier. I'm a fireman, not an accountant. That being said, I met with their staff a number of times. The township staff, the staff we have working for us, and discussed everything we need to get done in this first year. And after he took everything, he went back, his gentleman's name is Brian, and he said, for what you need to do this year, we need an operating millage that would go from the current 1.35, we need 1.4021. So a minor increase there, and then, but then also, we'd ask for $800,000 from the capital, so 0.5. So we're looking at 1.9 mils from the 1.35 today. And that's what, on November 14th, if we have voter approval, we'll be looking at asking the board to authorize.
One other, go ahead.
Please.
Maybe you were gonna address this, but, your thinking was the same as mine. We live in Lac Alpine, right?
Yeah.
So that's north and to the right.
Yep.
So looking at his map, I was thinking, well, this, not that would, this isn't gonna really help me. But then I thought, however, he'll have double the resources. So he can get to us quicker, even though he's coming from the existing.
Well, that's
Station.
Alpine, you just go straight down Z and make a right.
Yeah, that's true. Do you wanna try to?
Yeah, that's a very valid point, and that's something I mentioned redundancy, but I really didn't talk about it.
Right.
So today, one station, this fire station is over in Scio Farms on a medical call, and you call us for Lac Alpine. If we can get free, we'll get up there. If not, this station's available and ready to go. And you know, that's universal throughout Scio. If your emergency's in Lock Alpine and we have a medical call right here, it's a long time. However, with a second station, our second station will be handling that call, and we'd be free to get there right away.
Yeah, that's my point, that last example.
Yeah.
It's like you're not gonna be sucking up the resource that would apply to Lock Alpine, where we don't have where we have well water in addition. And so it's interesting.
And additionally, we'd be able to respond more appropriately to your emergency. If your home's filled full of carbon monoxide and I'm assuming your husband is passed out on the floor, and you get out and you're able to call 911 and you're laying out in your yard, we don't need one fire engine coming. We get a whole lot more resources coming right now.
Right, right.
That incident happened. We assisted Ann Arbor Township, I think it was the east side of Barton Hills, maybe a month ago. Folks, home cleaner came in, found one person unconscious on the floor, called 911. You know, it turns out they had a problem with a furnace or stove in the basement or something like that, but both people unconscious in the home. And there was resources all the way in Arbor Township's resources, Ann Arbor City resources, Scio Township resources there to address that incident. And it took us 15 minutes to get there. Just some general costs. I figure it's about $500,000 to have an open operating fire station. That covers our electric, our gas, our snow removal, taking care of the lawn, picking up the garbage, maintenance of the building, and also replacing all the equipment in the building. Everything we have has a finite life expectancy. Our fire engines should be primary for 15 years and then reserved for another 10. So we need to plan for those replacements, all our equipment.
How much do they cost?
Well, I thought I knew that a few years ago, but inflation's really got them. Ladder truck's about $1.5 million right now.
Well, we're gonna roll fire engine, a tanker.
Dexter just priced one at 1.1 million for a water tanker.
The one, the newest one, I think we paid 600,000, 500,000 for it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we're looking for value. We need a vehicle that operates and does our job. I don't need all the bells and whistles. We're trying to keep costs low, but they're going up. It's expensive now. I'm astounded. It's a bad position to be in. Additional 3 firefighters, I figure is anything got going. Addition of 3 firefighters between wage benefits and getting the gear, equipment, and everything they need to work is about $450,000. So that's really what your increases look like today. We have a contract. Your firefighters are unionized firefighters. I've got a contract for 1 more year, so I can predict next year's wage. After that, I don't know where we'll be. We're gonna have negotiations, get that figured out. They can't strike like the UAW, so don't worry about that. They're always gonna be in the building. I'm always working for you.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, you can. So if approved, like I mentioned earlier, 1.4021 operating, $500,000 capital assessment, revenue of around $3.1 million. And here's our cost to an average homeowner. Today, with 1.35, that $400,000 market value home, $200,000 taxable value, pays about $270 a year for their fire protection. It'd go up to about $370. If voters don't approve this, we still have the 1.35 mil assessment, about $2.25 million roughly, and about $270 a year for the homeowner.
Okay, so I don't understand this. So goes up to 370, so you're saying it's an increase of 100?
Yep, about 100 for the first year.
$100 for a $400,000 house, an annual increase of $100.
Yep, and something important to note, and I think folks are getting confused with this, when I say a $400,000 home, I mean you just purchased your home for $400,000 in Scio. That's your market value of the home. Your taxable value is $200,000. It's half of it. That's what your taxes are based on.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a point of confusion for folks who don't regularly study this.
So it just seems to me that it's not a lot of money. Is that a?
It's an economic condition, doesn't it?
Considering the benefit, yeah.
$100
So
a year.
if we look at
Yes.
a monthly basis, I pay most of my bills monthly. That's, today you're paying, this homeowner, this example, $22.50 a month, have your fire department. If voters approve all this, next year you pay $31 a month for your fire department.
Price of a fancy coffee.
Well,
I mean, that's really how people should think about these things.
That's kind of why I made this point here, you know, I saw some of the stuff that was out and there was, you know, one statistic that, hey, over 20 years, this increase will cost $11,000. And that's a big number. That's scary. I get it. But then I started thinking about that from my perspective and I thought, well, I've got college kids, so my internet's crazy, but I've got internet and TV that I'd pay a couple $100 a month for. Over the next 20 years, I'm paying $48,000 for internet and TV. Just perspective, I think helps. That's all I have. Where can I get more information? fire@sciotownship.org. That email address goes to me, Assistant Chief Brandon Sears, and our Terry Suave, our admin assistant. You email that, one of the three of us will get back with you. My personal email's on there too, as is everyone else's. sciotownship.org/fire. Terry has given you far too much information on the website. Thank you, though. If you have about 6 hours, you'll dig through it all. There's a lot of stuff on there. And then you can give us a call. That's the station's number. I'm in Monday through Friday, as is the rest of our staff, or firefighters on duty 24/7. They can try to answer your questions too. Any other questions folks have, comments, concerns, anything I can help you with?
When is your Halloween party, open house?
28
Week from tomorrow.
week from tomorrow, there we go.
So if you wanna see the station.
Please, Halloween party open house.
Voting rights.
A lot of kids, candy, there's all sorts of good stuff. Sir, you had a question, hospitals. I'm gonna pull up a Google map for you.
Yeah, I wanted to, if you can just give us a sense of where the hospitals are.
Yep.
Relative to your, to us.
Give me just a second to get there.
While you're doing that, I just want to thank you for I don't know what it was called, but there was a day at Dexter Library where you had,
That's a truck.
and I remember the young man there. My grandchildren, oh my gosh, they just loved that. So these community things that you do are important and appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely, we love doing them too.
Yeah, truck day, that's right. That's
All the
right.
trucks,
Oh
all the
my gosh, they were, we could have taken them to Walt Disney and they wouldn't have been happier, you know?
Okay. So I don't know why it shows like I'm shopping, but this is where the station's at or where we're at. Here's the boundaries of Scio. We don't have Dexter, but you know, roughly kind of come up here, right? So here's Scio, kind of in the middle. Chelsea Hospital, downtown Chelsea. And we've got the U of M kind of right up here near Carytown. And right here is Trinity Health.
So those are the three hospitals that you I have a stupid question, I guess. Why would you not, do you generally take them always to the nearest hospital?
Nope.
No, it's wherever anybody requests.
Wherever you want to go, unless it's super critical, right? If you want to go to Chelsea Hospital with a condition they can't treat, we won't take you there. But, you know, for routine stuff that you need to go to the ER for, the ambulance will take you wherever you need to go.
So, but if it's super critical, this person is near death or whatever.
Yep.
You don't ask them where they want to go.
No.
You take them to the closest one physically.
Closest appropriate.
Yeah, gotcha.
We're fortunate here in Washtenaw County, we've got 2 level 1 trauma centers. You know, U of M and Trinity, they can take trauma patients. We've got access to helicopter ambulance, and we've used it several times here in the community. car accident with a long extrication time, we'll land a helicopter on a freeway and get someone to the hospital in about 4 minutes.
Okay. Great, thank
If
you.
you haven't had experience with hospitals yet, you're lucky. But I mean, it's very interesting because, for example, if I had something minor, I might go all the way to Chelsea because they're less busy, they're very friendly and efficient. If you're gonna be in the hospital a long time, U of N parking can drive you crazy. You know, St. Joe's has a different, you know, every hospital has its pros and cons. And so it might be worth your while to, you know, learn, do an outing, take a visit, you know.
Field trip.
I've worked at the Trinity system and, you know, we always go there first. For various reasons, and everybody has their own preferences.
Yeah, we've actually chosen the University of Michigan network, and we've been real happy with that so far.
Okay.
Yeah, the specialists and all the rest, yeah, we've been real happy with
We
that.
have a ton of friends who work there.
Very professional.
So if you have this emergency vehicle, people wouldn't be charged personally if they needed to be.
We haven't thought that out that far yet, but
Okay.
generally I think what we do is charge insurance, and if insurance didn't pay, we wouldn't charge residents. I think we just write that off. But if your insurance company is gonna give us $500, we'll take it.
So that would be another sales feature. I don't know what the Huron ambulance costs, but, you
So
know,
that's all governed by Medicaid reimbursement rates. That's how nationwide ambulances charge. Agency I used to work for, again, transporting paramedic service. At the time, it was right around $600 plus mileage for a basic life support transport, around $750 for an advanced. That's if you have an IV or cardiac monitor and things like that. That agency, well, let's see, it was protected about 14 square miles out of 2 fire stations. Right now, they're working to get 10 people on duty daily. But they brought in $600,000 to $700,000 a year in revenue to help offset cost to residents through EMS transport.
Thank you.
Any other questions, folks? Thank you, appreciate it. I got a lot of data up front here.
Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah,
That's helpful.
Chief, check your Zooms.
I just have a comment. I haven't been to the website, which is that's on me. But maybe the top thing on the website should be, this millage is for gradual increments as needed over the next 20 years or 15, however many years. I think that's the piece that people don't understand. They think they're gonna be slapped with $1,000 more a year,
So
right away.
Terry's gonna get that on there Monday morning. A couple interesting pieces of information. Scio Township in 2015 developed a strategic plan for the fire department. The goal of this strategic plan was to have a second fire station open by 2020.
Almost made it.
We had a couple of crises since then.
In 2018, the township paid a company called Emergency Services Consulting International to develop, to evaluate and assess. They recommended we have a second fire station and increase staffing. These documents are here. I've got them online for you. Please feel free to take one and read it. Take a look through the data and you know, I want to give as much information out to folks as possible. There's no more questions here. Is there anyone online who has questions, Terry?
Not seeing any questions online.
All right. Well, thank you folks for coming out. I really, oh, sir.
Thank you.
Oh.
yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Appreciate it.
Recording stopped.
Before again.